Like slaves. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Season after season, year after year, the tides have rolled in and out of New York Harbor, long before the words, New York, were ever spoken across these channels. It was here on these waters, the tall ships first broke the horizon, commanded by explorers like Verrazano and Hudson, names we now give to our bridges and rivers. And ever since then, vessels packed with travelers exhausted from their long crossings have slipped through the Narrows, the Atlantic winds behind them, when those passengers raised their eyes to see what waited beyond the waves. What met their gaze, a land rich, green, and alive. They saw men standing at the piers ready to drag them into chains. They saw tenements crammed with filth. They saw factories pounding with motion chimneys, spewing steam and smoke, a city hurrying forward. They saw a giant symbol of liberty, her torch casting a glow of welcome around the world in New York City. They saw America itself. Tomorrow, our country commemorates 250 years since we proclaimed our independence. 2.5 centuries of a bold trial in self-rule, a trial so daring that many in 776 were convinced it could not survive beyond a few seasons, let alone 250 years. From Lexington to Los Angeles, from Selma to Seneca, Falls from Morrisania to Midwood, people across this nation will come together. Just as we do, every Fourth, families will gather around backyard grills. Fireworks will explode against the night. This will not be just another holiday. 250 years offers a rare moment for more than 340 million of us to turn together, both toward one another and inward, to take stock of who we are as a people. When we look at America, what is it that we see here inside City Hall? As I work behind George Washington's desk, surrounded by new citizens who have come to this land, I cannot glimpse all of America, but like so many who arrived before me, I can see New York City. The city before my eyes today bears little resemblance to the one that welcomed George Washington in July 1776. Then our city strained beneath the weight of tyranny. The British crown had fastened a colonial rule, so cruel that 250 years ago, just down at 80 South, a handful of printers, farmers, and soldiers put their signatures to a document that spoke truths which now feel self-evident, but then were radical, laying down the principles our nation still struggles to live up to. The British response was fury. War erupted, and soon the largest clash of the Revolutionary War took place in Brooklyn. Batteries on Governor's Island fired on British vessels anchored nearby. We were outmatched in guns, outnumbered in men, and after a short fight, we were badly beaten within months. It seemed this fragile experiment in democracy stood on the edge of ruin. But that night, under a pale moon, thousands of our troops quietly stepped into ferries and shallow boats and slipped across to Manhattan. The Continental Army lived to fight again. Independence may have been pronounced in Philadelphia, but it was saved here in New York City. George Washington was the final man to leave Brooklyn as he stood by the water's edge with dawn approaching. He would have looked out across New York's harbor and seen what countless others have seen over the past 250 years, a chance to start over. Those chances, like everything else in the city, are never handed out. They are claimed. In 1838, 11 years after New York formally abolished slavery, a newly freed black man named James Weeks sought his own fresh start and to clear the path for hundreds more. He purchased land in Brooklyn, winning for himself the right to vote and selling plots to others who had just shed their chains. When they arrived in New York Harbor, they knew something waited for them here that they had never possessed before: a home. Weeksville still stands today, a living, breathing reminder of what America can be: a place. Each of us has the ability to shape those years. The harbor buzzed with traffic. Ships streamed in from every direction. Hundreds of thousands of Irish arrived, their bellies empty from a famine born of imperial cruelty. Chinese seamen settled in the neighborhood we now call Chinatown. Millions more passed by the Statue of Liberty and through Ellis Island. Jewish refugees fleeing pogroms, Italians escaping deep poverty, Syrians in search of new livelihoods. All of these newcomers peered out of portholes at a city racing forward as quickly as the nation itself. They saw hawkers crowding the wharves. They saw roads mapped into neat grids. They saw structures reaching up into the sky. What they could not yet see was the wave of nativism that would meet them. The positions they would be denied. The building owners who would shut them out, and the backbreaking work and filthy housing they would endure. But no matter how thick the smog that clouded the skyline, they still made out a chance to begin again. In the decades that followed, even as federal laws were passed to slam the door in their faces, even as sweatshop fires took the lives of hundreds of women, even as riots tried to erase them from the map, immigrants built lives here in New York and helped build New York itself. That story of each generation of Americans, demanding that the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness apply to them as well. It carried millions of Black Americans. Northward in the Great Migration, it pulled hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans to this city after World War II. It called countless others from the Caribbean, South Asia, West Africa, and far beyond. And that same call is what led my own family here when I was 7. We did not come by sea, though we caught sight of the Statue of Liberty from our airplane window. Even from that height, we could see the outline of America's promise. The promise of the difficult but patriotic work of making America, year after year, a little more true to its first principles. There is a phrase often used to capture our country and the people who have molded it: American exceptionalism. Conventional thinking says, American exceptionalism makes our freedom just a bit freer. It explains how we cut the Erie Canal and watered the West. It is why children in distant nations grow up dreaming of living here one day, and yet there is an irony at the heart of it. The narrative of America has so frequently been written by people who were told by those with power, influence, and money that they were anything but exceptional for century after century. We have been warned that when the world has sent its people to these shores, it has not sent its finest, it has sent Puritans, Sikhs, Quakers, Muslims, Jews cast out for praying the wrong way, worshipping the wrong gods, offending the wrong authorities. It has sent peasants and serfs from slums and shtetls who owned little more than the clothes on their backs. It has sent immigrants who believed power was always in someone else's hands. We are told that America stands above other nations because we are wealthier, stronger, more mighty than the rest. The reality, my friends, is that America is exceptional because here, nothing is permanently nailed down. The frontier may be closed. We may have stepped onto the moon, but the task of living up to the ideals, first set down in the Declaration, that task continues, and it belongs to each of us. It belongs to our newest citizens, those joining me here today, all of whom have only recently taken the oath nearly 10 years ago. I too felt what you feel now, the thrill of becoming not just a New Yorker but an American. You each hold a unique authority, the authority to define what America represents. The powerful have always claimed their own definition to them. America is a stage for dominance, where only a chosen few may be truly free, where not all are created equal in their version. America shrinks with each new person it embraces. They say America is reserved for those who speak with the right accent or have the right color of skin. The rest of us, they say, should be thankful just to set foot here. How small their vision is, how fragile, how tired throughout our history. Those who govern by shutting others out and turning inward have sought to gain power and fill their pockets by setting us against each other. Dividing people is the oldest move in politics and the lowest yet, over and over again, including 250 years ago. Those agents of division have been defeated by forces of progress. As Thomas Paine wrote, this new world hath been the asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty. Hither have they fled, and still today, far too many leaders reject that vision of America, not as a refuge for the persecuted, but as a place that persecutes those who seek refuge. As we mark this 250th year, what do we witness? We see a city of tensions within a nation of tensions. We see the richest country ever to exist, one where children lie down hungry, even as the world's first trillionaire hunts for more. We see dominant corporations that control entire fields and billionaires who buy our elections outright. We see masked agents swarming our blocks, eating meals cooked by our undocumented neighbors before hauling them off in unmarked vans. We see a country whose colossal wealth was created by people with rough, dust-stained hands, by those on factory lines and those carving stone. And we see a country that has let so much of that wealth rest instead in the soft palms of a tiny elite. Yes, we see America in a health insurance system that profits from illness. But that is not the only place we glimpse America. We also see it in the nurse who stays for a double shift and then stops by an elderly neighbor's apartment on her way home. Yes, we see America in corporate landlords who treat negligence as a strategy, but we see it as well in the father who kisses his children goodnight beneath a ceiling stained with leaks, who rises before sunrise to work and still believes this nation can do better by them. Yes, we see America when our taxes fund bombs and bailouts, when our democracy is auctioned to the highest bidder, but we see it just as sharply in every person who still believes this republic belongs to us, we the people. We see America whenever neighbors stand shoulder to shoulder with neighbors without asking how long they have lived here or what papers they carry, when immigration agents storm our communities. We see America whenever young and old alike wait in driving rain or sweltering heat just to cast a vote. We see America whenever working people raise their voices, not only for themselves but for others who labor beside them. There are those who answer any call to expect more from this country with a simple slogan, "Love it or leave it but true." Patriotism has never meant claiming our nation is flawless. Patriotism is every act of just resistance. It is every blazing march under a relentless sun. It is every demonstration that arrives years before the world is ready. It is exactly because we love this place that we refuse to abandon it after all who loves America, more than those who have given so much to keep it free today. I think not only of the 4th itself, I think as well of the 9th of July. Just 5 days after the Declaration was signed, when it reached this city, Redcoat troops had landed on Staten Island. More than 100 British warships hovered off our coast across town. The Continental Army braced for an assault. George Washington ordered his regiments to gather only steps from where we stand. This spot was then called the Commons today. We know it as City Hall Park, there within range of British cannons. Washington directed his officers to read the Declaration aloud, and with the greatest empire on earth poised to strike, he told New Yorkers what we will celebrate tomorrow, that we had asserted our independence, that freedom was now within sight that night. Danger-thickened violence was not a possibility, but a guarantee. Still, when those early New Yorkers pulled down the statue of King George that stood in Bowling Green, a monument they would soon melt into bullets for a young army, they moved as one driven not by greed but by a set of ideals that had at last been given a name: America. The principles on which this country was founded are strong enough to outlast any tyrant, but only if we reach for them. Ours is a nation striving each day toward the perfection envisioned at its birth, a nation trying each day to rise higher within that striving, within that effort to improve, within that reach toward perfection, lies the real work of America. What an honor it is for each of us to live in a country that every person who calls it home has the ability to shape what a duty each of us bears to prove ourselves worthy of those who came before. What great power each of us holds to bring America ever nearer to the grandeur so many have seen when they first glimpsed these shores, the grandeur that, for 250 years, has been America. Thank you. God bless America. God bless New York.